Welcome to R&R Resilience and Rebirth, where every voice and every story matters, because your story has the power to change someone else's life. Hello, podcast lovers. Thank you so much for coming back. I'm your host, Žana, and today I'm so very excited to have this wonderful, wonderful person on my podcast as my guest. Kimberly and we had the privilege of meeting in a fantastic business coaching group. We have the privilege to share the very same business coach. Shout out to Jim Taylor at this point. And so that's where we met. And I feel like when we first met, we immediately in our group talks together, we kind of like felt like there's something, and we immediately jumped on a Zoom and wanted to explore more about, our work and just our mindsets. And quickly, I feel like we very fast came out to the idea of like, there's so many things we want to collab on. There's so many things we have in common on our mindset. And so, Kimberly, I'm so happy you're here. And at this point, I just want to tell you, because people will find out why I'm saying this later, but I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you for overcoming the stuff you literally overcame, because what you're going to share today in this episode is really not easy. And at this point, I have so much respect for you, girl. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for being here. And even more importantly, thank you for kicking the stuff that had no more space in your timeline to the curb. So, hi.
Hi, Žana. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. It makes me a little bit emotional when I get reflected back that support and that acknowledgement for what it takes to really overcome the darker shadows that a lot of us face, not only just in our industry, but in life in general. So thank you. I'm really, really grateful to be here. And yeah, total shout out to Jim Taylor for connecting us, and really, really privileged to be able to walk the path with you. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's so cool. And so I actually do want to jump right in, because man, I know that we had so many personal conversations too, and I want to say, if it's safe to say, we were building, or we were still in the middle of building a really deeper friendship with each other too. So that's why this episode means so much to me, because it's not only that we share so much more in business, because we both are in the world of hospitality, and we similarly do similar things in the world of hospitality, but yet they're so different. And so, but, for me, I would love to give you the floor and really take us back a little bit when you just talked about those shadows of life, that really those darker times of life. Where and when did you feel like that started for you, when that time became so dark that there was a cloud? Like, I feel like it would start with just like drizzles, but then of course those drizzles turned into a really dark, nasty, sad, lonely cloud. And I want to understand better, where do you feel like now that you look back, where did it start really with you? Like, where did that fundamentally came from? Or how did it evolve into fundamentally then later on, which we will talk about, into an addiction?
Yeah, that's a really deep question that, and it probably runs so deep that I don't even have an answer for it, because I truly believe in the lineage and the ancestral lines of trauma and addiction, right, and things that do run. So fundamentally, I think it runs very deep. But in this, time-space reality, in this lifetime, it started, I was born into a family who already had darker corners and shadows within the house that I grew up in. So for me, if I reflect back, I think the tendencies to escape and to use substances to numb and to escape what I didn't want to face at home, because my father was a very angry man. I've done a lot of forgiving, and I say this with only compassion and love for him, because he did the best that he could. However, there was a lot of rage, a lot of anger, a lot of alcohol in my childhood. And so I wanted to run as quickly as I could from that house, because I didn't feel safe. And so my journey started then. I left home very young when I was 15, and I hit the ground running, and I just started filling that void that I had, which was lack of love and lack of nurture and being seen. And I started to fill those parts of me with substances, with alcohol, with instant gratification through social connections, through sex, through partying, and then of course the restaurant industry. And again, I say this through the lens of compassion, but the restaurant industry took me in at a young age, and was fuel on the fire that I had this desire to just want to be loved, be seen, be heard, right? Do things on my own terms, not conform to society's rules. So that's kind of where it all started. But of course, at that time, you don't see it. I didn't recognize what I was getting myself into. I thought I was living the life from the age of 15 and up into my 30s. It was fun. It was wild. It was adventurous. Could travel wherever I wanted. You know, the money was always flowing. I was everything from a barista to a bartender, server to sommelier, manager to maitre d', all the corners of the front of house, which, as you know, is the life of the party. And so it wasn't until I was in my 30s where things started really getting worse and worse, to the extent where I could not keep a job. I couldn't keep a dollar in the bank. My relationships were falling apart. And then I lost my father when I was 36. So in 2016, sorry, my father passed away at the age of 59. And that really like sank me down deeper and deeper. And so that's where the darker shadows and the darker side of the way I had been self-destructing, so to speak, had really started to like weigh me down, right? So I was losing jobs for being intoxicated on shift. I was lost. I was lost, and I couldn't stop. No matter how sick I would get, you know, I would still continue to go. And then, by the grace of God, I met a fisherman. And this fisherman and his best friend, his business partner, had a seafood distribution company. And this is a really pivotal time in my story, because that shift that I needed to get out of those darker spaces was actually leaving the floor, was getting out of the restaurant industry. But not entirely because I loved the industry. I wanted to keep my foot in the door. It's all I ever knew. It's all I ever did. So for me to walk away and do something completely different was not even an option for me. So I became a seafood distribution business developer and a delivery driver. I was up at 5 a.m. and I was hauling fish off seafoods, hundreds, thousands of pounds of seafood, driving this big 3-ton truck around. And the guys I was working for were super supportive. But what that allowed me to do was shift my daily routine from that loop that I was so stuck in. And I know so many of us in the industry have experienced, is that loop of not being able to get out of the norm, right? So working all night, drinking all night, it's very repetitive. And so when I was able to shift myself from that environment, start to get up at 5 a.m, my routine started to change. Now, I never quit drinking and I never stopped using right away. It took me a couple years to level up, but that shift in lifestyle made me recognize different things in my life were possible. And then I'm kind of getting really into the depths of the story part of it. But then I had someone very special to me that made an impact way back in the day that I met, and I remembered who she was, and she was a spiritual guide and a coach. And I found her again on Facebook, and I started working with her over the span of a couple of years. And what that did for me was I started to cultivate different practices in my life. So I was still drinking and still using, but I started doing yoga. I started doing a bit of EFT tapping. I started dabbling with meditation. And what happened was I started to kind of elevate my frequency, right? And so every time I would drink or use, it was so down here that I would slip into like deep states of depression where I couldn't get out of bed. I would cry for days, it felt like. And then that's when it was like my light started getting brighter and the darker started getting darker, is almost the way that it was, to the point where like enough was enough. I had literally a fork in the road. Which way do you want to choose? And the voice in my head, especially after losing my father and seeing people slipping through the cracks, knowing that there was something greater out there for me, that I hadn't endured all of this just to slip through the cracks. It was time to build a new foundation. So during COVID, believe it or not, I chose to get sober. So September 1st, 2020, I made a deal with myself for 30 days, hit the yoga mat, not the bottle shop. Don't go after work. When I was finished running the fish truck, go home and hit the yoga mat. And so that's where the journey started. And I'll kind of just leave it there because I could continue on and on and on about really what kind of unfolded after that. But in terms of the darker, you know, parts of my life, it was really about recognizing how young they did start and how long they went unacknowledged until
Mm.
I was either going to continue in the dark and likely not make it out alive, or really like that flickering light, that like pilot light that flickers in a fireplace is always there for us. Right. And what happened with my spiritual guide and coach is she kind of gave me that, like, you know, I picture her giving me a fan, right? So just like giving me a bit of that oxygen to just see that light a little bit brighter, knowing it was there. But, you know, and so the darkness slowly dissipates within that light. And then the journey continued. So,
Wow. It's so crazy because, there's so many things that I want to just quickly touch base on before we move on. But like one thing that you said is that you already grew up in a household where those darker clouds were already present for you. And I think it's so interesting that sometimes we really do not think about these things, but it's becoming more and more, so much more clear, literally, that everything starts in our childhood, in our upbringing, the way we're, brought up, the mindsets that we're being embedded in, the things that we're being told that we should or should not believe. Like everything really starts there. And like you said, I don't necessarily think that people do this with a purpose, even though they truly believe that it's okay what they're doing or not okay what they're doing. It's really how you said, it's really at the time, that's all they knew. All they have is the tools that they have in the toolbox at the current time, with the mindset that they gained at that moment on their own soul's journey to really either understand, I have a crossroad or I don't. Because either they're already got there themselves, or they're literally on the way to maybe exploring that there actually is something like a crossroad. And I feel like when we take that, and we just understand how pivotal it really is to be in control, to make your own choices. Because for so long, I feel like you said, in the hospitality industry, it's almost like a rotational thing. Like it keeps going, it keeps going. It's like a cycle. It's like a cycle. And I feel like everything in life is just such a cycle, until we really understand that it's like, hey, it is a cycle, but guess what? You can actually change the cycle if you want to, you know? And so I thought it's so interesting how, really looking back on your own childhood, that part was already given to you. And you, in a sense, kind of had the choice to either already choose then and there as a child, this is something I want to go for, or this is something I don't want to. And even by saying I don't want to, still getting rid of the generational curses that we need to break for self, you know,
mm-hmm.
is something that is the hardest thing to do, because it's like, what do you do? Like, this is all you know. Like you said, in the hospitality industry, this is all I knew. I didn't knew anything else. I couldn't even imagine doing anything else. And that's how I felt back in days with smoking cigarettes. I could not for the life of me imagining having a conversation person to person or on the phone with a nice cup of coffee with not smoking a cigarette. Like that thought did not settle in my mind enough to be like, how is that even possible? How will I enjoy a conversation without smoking a cigarette? And it's so simple, but it really has such a strong hold on us, where it's like, how do I really get out of that, right? But for me, what's so fascinating so far with your story is the fact that, you remembered a person in your life, which is your spiritual mentor at that moment, that kind of gave you something that nobody in life gave in you. And you're like, that actually, I don't know what that is, but that felt different. That feels good. Whatever that is, that energy that I'm getting over here, even though I don't know how to master it, even though I don't know how to keep it, how to maintain it, but I know when I get it in this moment, it feels good. And for
Yeah.
you to remember in such dark time of like, I want to explore that further is so, man, that's exactly what so many people of us don't do. That part of like, I am just gonna go for it. I'm just gonna go and jump in this cold water, not knowing what, if I will be bitten by a shark, if there's an octopus coming for me. Like, I don't know what's happening in the deep ocean, but I'm just gonna jump, because literally this, I can't anymore and I don't want to. And so that to me is so that to me is actually the most fascinating thing of your story. It's like I wanted to make a change internally because I just simply knew I couldn't go on anymore like that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much to what you just said. Like back to the, to the parenting, just to kind of like encapsulate that. There's a book called The Four Agreements, and they talk about when we're born, like we're basically domesticated into other people's values, other people's beliefs, other
Right.
people's ideology of what life looks like. And of course, in the environment that I grew up in, I just took on all those. And so the work now is basically unlearning and reprogramming the neural pathways in our brain to tell a
Right.
different story, you know. And the woman that gratefully I was able to find again, I met her in like, I think it was about 2010 or 2011. And we did some, I'm not sure, she came on my path kind of spontaneously. And she did an exercise with me that left a mark on me that I never forgot. And because it was about 8 years later that I reached out to her and found her again. So it's those
Mhm.
interactions we don't realize that come in and out of our life that may not mean something in that moment, but turned
Right.
in, she saved my life. Well, I remember one night I called 911 on myself, and like she was on one line and I had the ambulance on the other. Like she was just always there for me, and just there's a deep spiritual connection between her and I. And so, yeah, her name's Marianne. I'll give her a little shout out. She's just been an absolute angel to me.
Yeah.
And then pushing ourselves. And it's interesting you use the analogy about swimming in the deep cold ocean, because as you know, that's been a practice that I have adopted over the last few years, which is cold plunging, and we can always talk about that later. But yeah, it's finding that strength within ourselves to push ourselves a little bit further and a little bit further, and asking ourselves, like, how bad do we want it? How bad do I want it? And that's just
Yeah,
kind of a motivator for me.
I think it's also the other question, how bad do I don't want this anymore?
Yeah,
Not only how bad do I want something to be different, but how bad do I don't want this no more?
yeah, yeah.
Like for me, in my pivotal moments when I had my major transformational spiritual thing happening to me, that was my question to me. I I don't, this is so bad that I don't want it this way anymore. That because of this being so bad, I gotta find a different way for it not to be this bad. And I had no idea what I wanted, which is even challenging, more challenging to actually go into on a journey like that, because all I knew is I just didn't want it this way. I had no idea how
Yeah.
it's going to become, what my vision could be, or whatever. I mean, obviously, I had dreams, I had visions in myself, but like those were so unrealistic to me. I remember at the very beginning, this is now at least 7, 8 years ago, I would stand in front of the mirror and literally tell myself, and I felt there were lies to myself. We call them
Mm-hmm.
today affirmations, but
Mm-hmm.
really,
Mm-hmm.
at the time when I did it, to me, it was like such bullcrap lie telling myself, I'm beautiful, I'm worth it. And I'm looking at myself thinking, that's, oh my God, this is stupid. First of all, I did not believe any of it at all because I just simply didn't see self worth. I didn't even know what that meant. And second of all, telling myself this sort of lie, trying to convince myself of something when I, me, myself, don't see it, don't believe it at all. I think to me, that was the most challenging part of it all. I don't know how you feel about really coming to self, but that to me was the worst. Seeing
Well, because you
what
have to
really,
embody it. Yeah, you have to
right,
embody it, right? You're coming from a space of mental, like
right,
logic, or, right? And so when we're trying to change the narrative and change our story to tell a different story that's more empowering, that's more
right.
productive and proactive, it has to be something, yeah, that's embodied. And so I've also been in the same position in front of the mirror as well. And generally mine would not go over so nicely, especially in the first, I would say, 6 months of sobriety. The self-hatred that came through my body in energetic form, which would manifest through emotions or rage or anger, I was carrying a lot of, I mean, as we spoke, like you mentioned about the adolescent days and the childhood days, we're sponges at that age. So if you think about a young child and their nervous system being surrounded by anger, rage, and these lower frequencies, those are actually, if they're not fully processed, right, they're now trapped in your energy body, and so they have to come up and come out, right? So if we're
Right.
just masking them with these affirmations that don't mean anything, you're absolutely right, it leaves us feeling probably more worthless than when we started. So it's really about
Mhm.
addressing it really from the cellular level rather than the mental construct. And for me, when I started this journey, and it's interesting, I don't know if you know who Abraham Hicks is. Right. And I don't listen to her much anymore. I feel like I've kind of evolved in that aspect, but she was so vital to me at the beginning because she allowed me to become the witness of my thoughts. Started to get to know my thoughts. I wasn't trying to really change them at that point I was just trying to get to know them and witnessing how they were actually in the driver's seat of how my day played out. And I've been an advocate for journaling. I've journaled since the early 90s, actually mid 90s. And I journaled this morning. So that's a lot of journaling. I think I have a Rubbermaid bin here that's got probably 65 journals in it. So the book is coming. But what I noticed and what I recognized is using the journaling as a tool to better understand my thoughts as well, and being able to tell a different story through the journaling. And so these rampages that Abraham Hicks would go on and share all this information was really helpful for me. Even just sitting in meditation, which I think there's a kind of a misconception, especially anyone early to this practice, it's that we have to stop our thoughts completely. And that's actually not the case. It's getting to know your thoughts. It's separating yourself and becoming the witness, the consciousness, the one that becomes aware of them. And until you do that, they're going to be in control. I think the first step of anyone trying to understand mental health and the thoughts we think is just simply becoming the witness without judgment, without trying to change them or shame them.
And I also feel like, and I want to add to that, it's not only that, but it's also allow yourself to feel what you feel. Like, when you sit in something, how people tell you, oh, you got to be positive every day. If you're not positive, this means you attract negative things and all of that stuff. And it's not entirely wrong to say that. But I'm saying if you're in the middle of really learning, like you said, about your thoughts and learning who you are through your own thoughts and that you actually are the driver of them, I think it's also so helpful to just allow whatever thought comes through, whatever emotion comes through, to just go through it. Like, allow that emotion to really not to sit in it and to kind of fester in it, but allow that to be there. Like, what I used to really do with myself is literally I would take maybe 20-25 minutes for one thing, and I would literally ask myself, am I okay right now? Why am I angry? And then I would have a self conversation with myself. I'm angry because, okay, but am I really physically okay? Is everything working in my body? Yes, everything is working in my body. So why are you panicking? Because you would start to breathe harder. You would almost get to the point where you can't. And so I would stop and be like, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Okay, so what's happening? This and this is happening. I would literally force myself to actually have self conversation with myself internally, sometimes out loud, sometimes internally, just to allow myself to also feel. And I would tell myself my emotions, your anger emotions, you angry emotions, you are welcome here until I decide that you're not no more. And so when I learned that switch of like, I am in control of my own thoughts, my thoughts are not controlling me, but rather I control my thoughts, which sounds so simple, but it wasn't simple for me because there were so many coming at me at all times, and my mind would just go and go and go, and I would never feel like I could have a break. And I feel like mental health in general is something that has so many branches. Like, it's this big old tree and it has so many branches of mental health, and like there's so many tools, like you said, journaling. I used running. I went for my runs by myself, and I still do that. Like, when people ask me, can I come from a run with you? No, I'm good. Like, I don't need, no. That's a me thing. Like, I want to go for my own run by myself. I want to feel the wind in my face. Like, I love when it's really cold outside too. It's my favorite thing, like all bundled up, and like I love it. And same, like you said, journaling or painting. Like, that's how I got to all my paintings too, in all honesty, because it was just another outlet to just zone away from something that felt so heavy in the moment. But through journaling, painting, running, I actually allowed the thought to take place for me to develop on it more. Why are you there again? And where is it actually coming from? Oh, it's coming because my dad didn't tell me face to face one time, I'm so proud of you. Oh, and so then, for me, I felt like God would bring back memories that I haven't thought of in the years. They would be so buried so deeply, and then all of a sudden these examples would come up that I never thought of when I was 4, 5, 11, 15. I'm like, oh my God, that's where that come from. That's the connection to what I'm experiencing right now in this moment. And and so I feel like when we allow self to just go through what we're really feeling and not pushing it away and of like, oh, I got to be positive. Oh no, that's bad. If I'm feeling bad, like
Well, what you're essentially talking about is healing. So if you think about it as a bell curve, so we're triggered, or there's the story and the emotion here, right? And so we'll use children as an example. If we're told to shut up, crying's weakness, shame on you, all those things, and we go and we don't fully feel that, it's trapped in our body. So
right.
healing for me is actually riding that bell curve, feeling its emotion in its fullest capacity without, like you said, wallowing in it, making it bigger, shaming yourself because of it. Just feeling it for what it is, allowing yourself to fully feeling it. And then when you come down is integration and rest. That's also a breathwork journey in itself, right? You're riding the bell curve. This is where I kind of learned this
Mm-hmm.
language and this understanding, which resonates for me. And again, what my views on life and beliefs and things may not be for everyone, but to me, it's like fully feeling it and then allowing myself to rest and integrate after. And I've witnessed myself moving through these big emotions. Sometimes I don't even know what the story is, whether it was that time this happened or that time that happened, but it's still living in my body. And when I went through the first couple of years of recovery, quitting alcohol and the harder drugs and cigarettes as well has been a massive thread for me. It was in my life since the age of 13. And what would surface in the letting go of those, which kept these emotions at bay, right? Kept them suppressed. Well, when I created the space and let these things go, well, now that created the room and the space for these emotions to surface. And sometimes I felt such rage and anger that I thought I would combust. No joke. The tears, like not being able to stop. I would just lay on the floor like a child because that's what I needed. Because when I was a child, I was never given the space to do it. And so that's been like the biggest emotional purging and healing that I've done throughout the last 5 years of being sober, and has been, you know, incredibly valuable. And of course, taking on practices like breath work to help facilitate. I have a handful
Right.
of practitioners in my life that I am so grateful and blessed for, whether it's acupuncture, breath work, massage. Like, I just have these really holistic, amazing humans in my life because we can't go at it alone. And I wouldn't have this knowledge of self or knowledge of practices and tools and things out there if I hadn't started to meet them on my journey, and not by searching or trying to control, thinking I needed someone. Or does that make sense? Like, I never really
Totally.
like, I just allowed them to come on my path. And that's again another golden nugget of my journey, is surrendering and knowing the things that I need will come to me when I'm ready. That's
Mm-hmm.
like ultimate surrendering. Even on the business side of things, you know, things just naturally will flow to us, but we have to create the space, because I believe we only have a certain amount of capacity. We're bombarded with information these days, right? Just coming at us all the time. And if we're not cultivating these practices that create space, nothing new can ever come into our life. We'll miss that opportunity of that person who might be standing in line, who might be a book editor, or that breathwork practitioner that's over there at a market that I went to. But if I'm too busy in the mind, I'm not going to meet that practitioner. I'm not going to meet that book editor. Like, does that make sense? Right? So
Totally.
the more spacious we are, the more opportunities. And again, I'm viewing things very much through an energetic lens, right, of
Right.
energetic beings. There's the third dimension, of course, which is, you know, practical and realistic in itself, and we need those for everyday, you know, life, for logic and things like that. But really, in the absolute ultimate surrender of flowing, and like you said, like that natural, we've talked about this before, attuning ourselves to the natural flow of life. It's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so what comes with that, and I'm going to go off a little bit here, not on a tangent, but speaking to what are we consuming, not just drugs, not just alcohol. What information are we consuming? What music
Right.
are we listening to? What kind
Right.
of conversations are we having? These all play a
Hmm.
huge role in our evolution to begin to heal the parts of ourselves that aren't serving us. And one of the biggest
Hmm.
things I did as well when I got sober from alcohol is I got sober from social media. I deleted everything for like 2.5 years. And I know that that's not for everyone. And
Right.
I just think we need to be mindful of how this is really impacting our mental health, our physical health, our emotional health by distracting ourselves from not looking. Through binge
Hmm.
watching TV, I don't have a television. I don't scroll social media. I use social media now as a tool, right? A business tool, a networking tool. But really identifying what is in my life that is hindering my ability to evolve and being
Hmm.
radically honest with myself and taking inventory. It sounds
And
like a
I think,
really big job, but it's been small steps. This all didn't just
yeah,
come to me right away, right? It was about
sure.
making those small intentional steps to get
Yeah.
where I am. But it's happened so quickly because of those eliminations, eliminating those things from my life, people, places, things, habits, and so on.
Yeah. And I could not agree on, when you said mentors in one's life, like I so agree with that because this isn't, like you said, this isn't something that just comes easy and all of a sudden you wake up and you have the understanding of what is energy. You have the understanding of what are different frequencies. You have the understanding of what is breath work. You have the understanding of I can actually change my own thoughts and actually I can manifest with my thoughts, which is probably a whole nother conversation, maybe part two podcast. You're
Yeah,
more than welcome to
totally. I
join.
love, look, I got goosebumps. I love talking about, yeah, how to
Same.
create, yeah, turn a vision into a reality. And it's
Totally.
when you, yeah, I didn't think there was any fun. I was like, how is life going to be fun if I don't drink or do drugs? I'll tell you where the fun is: co-create with spirit and with the universe. And shit is radically fun. But anyway, yeah, part two. We'll
Totally.
park that for
But
part two.
but part two is coming. So but but all of that, like having mentors in our lives, really teachers, mentors, people that are literally just stepping in, just training you for helping you to master certain things that in general we all have internally. Like we all are fantastic breath workers on our own. We all are fantastic light workers on our own. But sometimes it takes time, or sometimes it takes trauma, or sometimes it takes something really sad or traumatic or really outrageous something to happen for us to really be like, okay, now I actually want to go on the journey to find that within myself. And also what you said on the specific energy levels, just to be on specific energy levels, that to me, when I tapped into that part of life, things really started to shift for me. And but before that, I'd be very honest, I was the girl that said, oh my god, that is so woohoo, that is so much more like I don't get it, like whatever energy, yeah, sure, fighting, spirit in spiritual realm and all of that, like it sounded logical to me, but like it, I didn't know what kind of impact it would actually have personally on me, until I really honed in more on those things and then really went through kind of like debris my life from, like you said, people, place, being, situation, circumstances of like, does this really serve my higher self? Does this relationship really make me feel that it's mutual, it's reciprocity, it's kindness, it's love, it's like a mutual exchange of energy? Or is it really just that I look at it and see, wow, for the last 30 years, this has been based on me putting in the work and me being present and me sharing my energy, yet none of it would come back to me. So thank you, but no thank you. And then, like you said, letting go of things that are simply not serving your soul anymore. And I think that sometimes it's so hard because when you're so used to your own safety net, let it be a full-time job where you have benefits, let it be a friendship, let it be a relationship. Now you build life, you maybe have children, you have assets, you have all that, whatever, to now say, but energetically and spiritually, you don't serve me. So you like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like to me, that was my mindset. I'm like, I don't know what do you, I don't understand. Yeah, am I fully happy? No, I'm actually not happy at all. But like, if I wouldn't have that, I'd be even unhappier. That was the belief that I thought was true, right? Until really when you step in that thing of like, I really need to be good for me, because if I'm not being good for me, if I don't value how I feel first, like stepping into a room and just feeling how I feel. And people back in the days, they would say like, "Oh yeah, are you in your emotions? Are you on your, on your monthly situation?" It would be so downplayed when we talk about emotions. But now that we see strong leaders, also male, strong leader male, like for instance, our coach Jim, he's such a great example for that. Like he's never he's so humble anytime when he speaks on these things. And he's obviously so many things. He's a fantastic husband. He's a leader. He's successful. He's a great human. Like, I mean, obviously he's a great business owner too. But yet he's capable of speaking on things that people wouldn't do back in the days. You had to be a specific way. You had to hide your emotions. You couldn't really tell. And now it's really the time, I feel like finally where we're stepping into of saying, actually, this doesn't feel good to me. So I think I'll respectfully pass, and I'm a think on it or pray on it or meditate on it or whatever people want to, do in their own private life. And so that to me is more important right now, because I feel like now when you collab with people, like that energy that you put out there because you mastered it in yourself, because you understand self-worth and you're caring first for you, what you now attract from the outside, like the people that are now coming in, the ideas that are coming in, like you said, it's not about searching, it's just mastering inside. And then I feel like what we feel internally is exactly what we attract from the outside automatically. It's I don't even know what that word is, but it's a given thing. Like, whatever you put out there energetically internally will 1,000% reflect from the external. Because that's what people say, like, "Oh, so you think I want to have a shit life because look at my circumstances." I'm not saying you want to have a shit life because your circumstances are, but I am saying that when you look around in your own circle, whatever that reflects is coming from internally from you.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a great opportunity for you to look at yourself and be like, well, why do I have this friend that constantly is negative around me? Why do I have this friend that constantly feels the need of wanting to overshadow me or copy me? Or why do I have whatever? And then really ask self, is that something I do? Is that something that I maybe lack in yet or still need to master? You know what I mean? And so it's like,
Totally. And even
right?
like down to like your environment, right? So an environment, like how you choose to live, and I'll use a personal example of the house that I grew up in. It was chaotic. It was messy. It was all over the place. What was that? An internal representation of how my parents were feeling, which
Yeah.
was always stressed out, which was always chaotic. Like it's not even just in our relationships, but it's in our environment. Our worthiness as well is reflected through how we spend our time. If we're
Right.
numbing out all the time, then there's a worthiness, right? There's a piece there that's missing because we don't feel worthy enough to take care of our bodies or worthy enough to give that business a green light, right? We'd rather stay in the comfort of what we have. So
before we continue, I wanted to take a quick moment to say thank you for your trust. These conversations can really exist because people are willing to openly listen and hold space for real conversations. If this episode resonates with you, the best way to support the podcast is to follow or subscribe so that these stories can keep reaching the people who really need to hear them. This podcast began with my story, but it continues by making space for yours. Your voice and your story matters. Now, let's get back to it.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's so interesting. It's really
yeah.
so interesting. But for me, it's also so fascinating how you actually took that, on your healing journey, and then you created a program where you just step out, for people of like really, because we haven't even touched on burnout, but I know part of your business strategy is really to talk about burnout, because I know that you yourself experienced for real like severe burnouts in your career. And me and you both know that leaders in the world of hospitality are so often so on the verge of burning out, because I remember in COVID, people would literally reach out to me over LinkedIn saying like, can we just have a conversation? Because I literally don't know anymore where to go. And I would have this group where we just connect to leaders, and like owners, where we just talked literally about this is literally how I feel right now, which was so amazing to see that again. people in really high positions, strong male leadership, is actually being humble and vulnerable enough to say, like, I'm struggling with this. If is anybody else in this group struggling with this, you know? And I think this is exactly what is so wonderful now when we come together as a collective and really just share these ideas. But I know that for you and your business, that's a big part of it that you focus on, right? Like burnout in general, and really helping leaders to overcome also if they maybe have addictions in their circle, but yet needing to fulfill a big role.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, this burnout, like burnout it's depletion, and it's a byproduct of so many areas of our life not getting the nurture care that it needs, the rest, the boundary setting, right? I think the antidote for burnout is boundaries. We're giving too much. We're forgetting that we need to put our own oxygen mask on first. And our industry has normalized that badge of honor, right? That like push, now. And the only way we're going to shift a culture and the industry to recognize how unhealthy it is if it starts with our leaders, right? Yeah. And so a big part of what I do is addressing the burnout, the substance use, the mental health challenges, the lack of resources and support that are in place for these leaders and their teams, right? And so it's starting to not only just normalize the conversation, we can give it lip service, but we need to start taking action. And so it's about implementing actionable strategies within these organizations to allow the leaders to feel supported, to feel seen and heard, and know they have the tools to help, then by extension, help their teams. Because a struggling employee very rarely is going to get supported by a struggling leader. Right? So, and it's kind of a reflection of that struggling leader. Right? And there's different cases, and everyone is unique. Every business is unique, and every individual is unique. So I'm certainly not generalizing here, but I think it's really important that our industry starts to recognize that if we want to sustain it, and like, it's time to change. I do post about this all the time. There is no one out there who says that missions and initiatives like what we're talking about are not needed. And, you know, that's really about embedding programs, recovery programs, mental health training, stress and burnout prevention programs, onboarding, right? So there's so many different ways that we can really start to embed this into organizational structures. You know, I had a woman call me the other day. She was opening a wine bar and she's putting her SOPs together. And she wants to know how to start the culture off right. It's those kind of leaders that I am attracting. Am I searching for them? I'm putting content and doing marketing, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to bang on doors from people who have them locked, who are not willing to put their hand up. That's where it has to start. The willingness has to be there before I even come into play. It has to be an aha moment on their part. Maybe it's through a post that I do. Maybe it's through a newsletter. Maybe I have created that aha moment in some way. I was that one fanning that pilot light, you know, so they could maybe see their own light. But it's not until that switches over where we can actually start to have conversations and to see the needle moved. And I think that's where the challenges lie, is that resistance to change, because we have done things like this for so long.
Forever.
Right? Forever. But so many people, and especially since COVID and everything that our industry has been through over the course of the last 5 years, we're starting to recognize the need for this. And so through my own journey and watching, as I said earlier, people slip through the cracks, you know, particularly in 2021, I was about a year sober, and a dear friend of mine, also an industry veteran, we lost him, and I believe we could have saved him. He was very similar to me, right? So getting let go from restaurant to restaurant, you know, being involved in some really heavy drugs and alcohol, and being lost and having no one to talk to. And right. And so watching, and that was really it really hit me hard to be like, something has to change. Now, it was still another year before I actually even came up with the idea of Last Call and what that would look like. But I knew I wanted to start to give back. I knew my purpose on this journey was to support people, whatever that looked like. And it's interesting, my first initial idea was to start an organization called Spiritual Recovery. And it actually had nothing to do with the hospitality industry, because I was so immersed in these beautiful practices like meditation and tapping and breath. I wanted to share it with the world. But when I really sat with it, and they're still a big part of my life, they're very sacred to my life. And I think I wasn't ready to actually give that out to the world yet, or to share that. I share it with individual people I work with.
Yeah.
So it's always parts. Somatics and mindfulness are always a part of what I do, whether it's organizational or individual. And I felt like the market, there's a lot of that out there right now, right? There's a lot of that. It's kind of the Wild West. And so I pulled back, and I actually went into meditation down by the ocean and came up with, my whole journey is the hospitality industry. Like, it just made sense.
Yeah.
And then again, God gifted me with this opportunity to become a coach and a facilitator for another organization. And I spent about 1.5 years doing that, which really solidified this. It really allowed me and affirmed my belief that I could do this, and I could coach people, and I could hold space. And the people, with their testimonies and the feedback I received from coaching and facilitating this program, this recovery program with an organization called On a Dime, it really started to like build that momentum. Like, I think this is it. And then so I stemmed off and I started Last Call, and gratefully, again, I'm God, and I mean this in no religious contents. God is, creator, source, divine, however you want to articulate it. Again, gave me, so many gifts on this journey, so many gifts, but one of which was Jim Taylor. And I met Jim Taylor at the beginning of all of this. I only had a few hundred followers, and I just had this grandiose idea. And he called me up out of the blue one day, and we just had a really amazing conversation. And that was probably about a couple of years ago now. And seeing the support of, yes, this is needed, do it, and bringing my unique voice to it. And I know that it doesn't land for everyone, and I call it like I see it, and I'm raw, and vulnerability is my superpower. I am not afraid to talk about what's underneath, to talk about the feelings and the emotions and the stories, and because it's with very good intention that it's there to help others, to make an impact, to make waves, right? And that's what I feel like I'm doing with every post, with every conversation like this, is making waves and ripples to our industry. So someone else energetically is making a better choice for their day because they heard this conversation, or they read that post, or the article, or whatever it is that's out there. And so from there, it just started building, and LinkedIn has been, we met, like, I have to say, like, LinkedIn's been the best tool for me, the biggest platform for me, for my work to become recognized and seen for what it is. And there's many of us in the space that are doing this kind of work. And I just feel like I found my place and my purpose for now. There's a big vision beyond Last Call, of course, that ties back into those spiritual practices and things that are far greater than what I'm doing now. But this is certainly the stepping stone and the catalyst for me to make really big waves, like, tsunami waves out there.
Yeah. I also feel like, not only, vulnerability in general is really something that should be everybody's superpower, because this is exactly how we really talk and share. And it's not about being, oh, you did this wrong, look at you, or, oh my God, I would never do that. Like, it's not about any of that. It's really about, the more we are really being open and transparent about what really it is, that not only what happened to ourselves. And I feel like, front leaders that are really openly talking about what had happened to themselves first, or really giving ground space for other people to actually see it is okay to really speak up. It is really okay to really speak on the things that had happened to one, to just shed light for others. And I think this is exactly, this is the reason why R&R podcast, for instance, is here. This is how my podcast came to life, because I felt like there was something that I just wanted to speak on, because we don't speak on these kind of things, because they're very embarrassing to speak on. It's very embarrassing to sit here and to say, yeah, I was this girl back in the days that could not get her basically her words under control. Like, it's very embarrassing to sit here and say that, but that was just really, but
it's also empowering, right? Like, it's to me, it's not embarrassing. It's who I am. It's authentically who I am.
But that's only because you mastered being authentically who you are. But if you haven't
before, embarrassed and shamed and judging, and those are the little critters, like the little gremlins that live inside, that keep us small. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I feel like, for just moving forward in general, I just feel like that when we find people, that are becoming so valuable to us in life. I think it's such a wonderful thing, but it's also nothing is forever. Like for me in my personal journey, I learned that I'm embracing exactly what it is right now with the person that is exactly currently in my life, understanding that that's possibly not going to be forever. But if it happens to be forever, amazing. But like there's no more need of like, I gotta hold on to something. I gotta. It has to be this way. And if it's not that way, then it doesn't mean this. And if it doesn't mean that, then it's not going to be that. Like all of that crap, if world thinking and not living in the moment kind of thing is, I think, where so many of us are struggling, because we constantly are like either thinking, oh my God, why did that happen to me? Why was this person? And we're dwelling on that. Or it's like, oh my God, how it's going to be in a month. If this client doesn't come through, and then whatever, like, instead of just, what, today I'm good. Like today, I'm like having a cup of coffee. I can sit here, look out of my window. I can actually breathe fresh air and I'm safe. Isn't that enough for today? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying to not have dreams. I'm not saying to work forward. I'm not saying to go and get, be a go-getter. I'm saying to within that still respect the currently what is happening. Because I feel like I missed out on so much valuable life in a sense, on memories that I just rushed through. And now I'm looking back, I'm like, but how was the time exactly when I was living in Canada? I mean, I have glimpses how it was, but I'm like, but how was it for real? You know what I mean? Because I was just like rushing through a period of my life where I'm like, well, yeah, I got to get to the next stage. And but then I missed the stage that I was currently in. And so that's kind of like, if anything, I feel like let's take a moment, literally, and this is going to sound so cheesy, but like, let's take a moment to literally smell the flowers, like for real, go hug a tree, like sit in the grass, like just breathe in, you know what I mean? Just take a moment, like call somebody that you love so much or that you have respect for, or just say, I have so much respect, or give a compliment. What is it going to cost to be like just at a Starbucks waiting for a cup of coffee, or some coffee shop around you, and just be like, hey, guess what? I really like your pair of shoes. Not because you're trying to be kind, but because you really feel that those pair of shoes are so dope for you to come out of the gate to say, man, those shoes are so cool. Good for you. You know what I mean? And so I feel like when we do that more and more and more, like it's a ripple effect. Like you're just shining a little bit light and you're drizzling a little glitter, like you're sprinkling here, you're sprinkling there, and it's like it's gonna come back, And I'm not saying to do that because you wanted to come back. I'm saying hopefully you are so secure in self that you can really just give out these kind gestures that really could make such a big mark on somebody else's life in that moment.
Totally.
Yeah, that's why I'm so happy that you do what you do, because I know for a fact that you are touching people that are so ready, in such a different way, where it's like one conversation, one session, one this, one that, and they're like, oh my God, thank you for coming in a sense and helping me to see it from a different light, and having to go through all of those things. I feel like you're a perfect partner to really collaborate with people out there that are either currently in a stage of, I'm still addicted to something, but yet I'm running my business and I don't know how to leave this. Because you've been there, and there's nothing more authentic than actually hearing from somebody, look, I know what you feel because I've done it, but guess what? I overcame it too. So if I can, you can. You know what I mean? Like nobody's anything special more than anybody else. We all are the same. You know what I mean? And we all come, in my opinion, from the same amazing source, whatever that might be in anybody's world, And so we can, but like, having a real conversation from like pure authenticity. Yeah, it sucked when I did that. Yeah, I was an asshole when I did that. Yeah, man, I was rude, whatever. Like owning your stuff.
Yeah.
That to me became my superpower, to be like, yeah, I did that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's me.
When I realized that I was creating my own reality, I was like, I didn't create this shitstorm. No way. And then I sat with it and realized, oh crap, I did. I did create this shitstorm.
Right.
But in terms of like, working with people, and it's interesting because I said to my coach, to Marianne way back, if I could just help one person like you helped me, then I feel my purpose on this planet has been, accomplished. And
Right.
I'm flooded with people coming to me saying how much of an impact I've made on their life, and that just warms my heart. And like, I never would have imagined being on this journey that this is where I would be. But continuing to just follow those golden nuggets and teaching people on the way, because a lot of people that come to me just can't see the forest for the trees. And so when we work together, it's like, you can show them their blind spots. You can, introduce them to practices and strategies to help them with their day, things that you just don't see in your everyday life. And what works for me may not work for someone else, but I do know I'm also a library of things that can help facilitate us. And even something as simple as, like you said earlier, taking that minute, taking 3 deep intentional breaths, hand on heart, wherever feels resourceful, taking a breath, stepping away, and just breathing into your heart space, feeling the rise and fall of your breath is a nervous system reset like that. Do that every single day or every single time you feel triggered. And yeah, you'll forget. Give yourself some grace, right? It's called practice for a reason. But these little micro habits is literally what builds the macro strength. Like it's what builds that resilience. And so, yeah, I mean, it's beautiful work. And I'm every day, I mean, I wake up so grateful to not just to be alive, but like gratitude again. Vulnerability is a superpower, and so is gratitude. So in times of like darkness, and I'm not saying like write 10 things you're grateful for. That's a really beautiful practice, and I get that. But again, it's like saying affirmations in the mirror. If you don't embody the gratitude, they're just words on paper, right? And so embodying gratitude, what does that look like? That means giving thanks before you eat a meal. I'm not saying it's a religious, but just thanking the food, blessing the hands that made it. Every time I get out of my car, I tap it on the hood and I say, thanks for getting me home safe. Every time I have a hot shower, these little things that are in our daily, and that's building appreciation. The frequency of appreciation is like almost, love is the highest, but appreciation is where we can, again, attract things. Same with giving back, like you spoke about, right? I do some pro bono work with a mission in Kenya, Africa. This work lights me up. I get nothing in return. But what it is it's filling my cup to see these people who don't come from what I feel very privileged to come from what I come from. So I'm able to give back, because what is so small to me is such a beautiful gift to them. Exactly. Right? And so I live in the space of gratitude, which then allows me to give back without feeling like I'm giving and not receiving, or I'm feeling depleted, or why do I have to donate, or whatever that is, because I already feel full.
Yeah.
And again, to the leader's point of view, like a leader is not able to give unless their cup is full. It has to be overflowing. Otherwise, it just depletes and depletes, because we're giving, and that's where burnout comes in, right? And so, yeah, it's just, it's profound and it's amazing. And I'm so grateful to be here and share this with your audience.
Yeah, same. Gratitude is everything, man. Seriously, just really that simple gratitude of like, I'm healthy and I'm so thankful.
Yeah.
Because literally health is wealth.
Oh yeah. Well, they say you have 100. They say you have 100 problems until you have a health problem, and then you only have one problem.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
And I think too, like, recognizing that how our thoughts also play a massive role in our physical health. And again, we can park that for another conversation, but really too, and this is part of my daily practice that's really worked for me. No matter how much time I have or don't have in the morning, I spend 5 minutes minimum with my body. Whether it's a quick little qigong practice, whether it's even just tapping on like my major organs, just saying hello, sending it gratitude, stretching it a little bit, just recognizing being in my body is that's it. If I have 5 minutes, and again, that's like out of my head and into my body. And so again, these little practices that just, I think, really facilitate well-being and optimal health. Because it's not just about what we put in our body, that's huge too, but it's also how we feel about our body. What we're telling our body is also plays a massive role on what it looks like and how it feels.
Yeah, I feel like it starts in the mind, but then it trickles down to, what you feed your temple. Like you said at the very beginning of the conversation, what do you see on TV? What do you consume yourself with? What type of music do you hear? What kind of food do you really eat? Like, what is really your mindset in general of like, what do I feed my temple? Because you only have one temple. You know what I
And if
mean?
you
And
start
so,
taking inventory of that, like when you start taking inventory of that, like get radically honest. Again, we can't
right,
judge ourselves. Look at the world we live in. We are
right.
bombarded with fake synthetic dopamine and information. Everyone's got the answer to everything. Everyone's here to save you. News flash, you can only save yourself. But by taking that inventory, it's the step in the right direction by saving yourself. And yes, I
Right.
work one on one with people and I'm there to facilitate their healing, but I'm not the one telling them what to do. All the answers are lying within us of what we want to do, what our dreams are, what our aspirations are. But we got to get the crap out of the way. And by taking that inventory of, all the things, writing a list, all the things that I'm doing that are depleting my energy, and writing a list of all the things that are filling up my cup. And doing more of what's filling and less of what's depleting, and small shifts at a
Mm-hmm.
time,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's, I feel like it's also the willingness, like you really need to
Oh,
be
yeah.
willing of like, I literally, like I said, I don't know how I want it to be, but I don't want it this way.
Yeah.
And so that willingness has to be like the strongest thing. And then anything will slowly, like you said, follow into place. And then people will
Yeah.
all of a sudden enter your life and situations are going to fall away
Yeah.
or open up, or like that's an automatic thing. I feel like God is so amazing. To me, it's God. God is so amazing at that, of like, you say you want to change. Okay, ready? Here we come,
Oh,
because it's
yeah.
coming. And
Oh,
then all
yeah.
of a sudden you see, things falling away and you're like, well, wait,
And
they were my
and
friend for 30 years. Why that's part of me getting better. Yep, gotta go. Like, or you all of a sudden get something where like at the beginning it's like, oh my God, I could never imagine. But I'm saying for me, the realization of certain things will seriously fall
yeah.
away because I was praying that. Any
Mm-hmm.
people, place, situation, circumstance that are not for my highest and my best, please remove it out of my life.
Yeah.
Boom. And then
Yeah.
I'm like, but wait, that was my friend for 30 years. What do you mean?
Yeah.
That too?
Totally.
Like,
And
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 so
I'm yeah, and I just something that's and I'm sure you've experienced this is when you pray and you like removing these things, and then the universe is like, I'm gonna dangle a carrot here for you just to see how serious you are. Right? Right? So, for example, 2 months after I quit drinking, I moved into a new place. I left the downtown east side. I was living in downtown Vancouver, and I moved to Deep Cove, like North Vancouver, into a beautiful little little place in the woods. It was so pretty. And the landlord, was a wonderful woman from Bulgaria, and she brought me this wonderful gift basket of things when I moved in. And what she didn't know is that I was 2 months sober, and she put a bottle of wine in the gift. Really sweet of her.
yeah, totally.
But what I took from that, and so I looked at the bottle of wine, and on the label, I did a post about this. The bottle label, it was called Twist of Fate. I have it
Oh,
downstairs in my
wow.
kitchen. So it was like, and so that's the universe. We get tested. How serious are you about this? What are the chances of that bottle of wine having a label on it called Twist of Fate?
Yeah,
Still on my
it's not
kitchen
a
counter,
coincidence.
unopened.
No, it's
Still on
not
my
a
kitchen counter.
coincidence.
Not
Whoever
a
thinks it's a
coincidence.
coincidence, it's not a
No,
coincidence.
I could sit here. We could have a whole nother podcast about synchronistic
And
moments
we
that would
should,
blow your
really, we should.
mind of
We
like,
should.
there's no way.
Yeah.
How did that happen? I could turn,
Right.
I could turn anyone who's a non-believer, hopefully, into just a little bit more of a believer that there are some really beautiful greater forces at
Yeah,
play guiding us when we
totally.
choose to allow them. And yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's been wild. So just back to just the universe does
So
like
funny.
to test
Yeah.
us and initiate us into these new identities and these new roles, and that's
Right.
evolution, I think, in itself.
Absolutely. Kimberly, this was such a
I
great
know.
conversation.
Time
I'm,
would go
I'm
so quick, eh?
I'm so happy that we had this time. I know you're so busy. Thank you for taking the time to be here, talking to me. Thank you for your open heart. And again, I'm so proud of you.
Thanks, Žana. That means a lot. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's just an honor to know you, and I look forward to how this friendship and collaboration
Totally.
wants to unfold
Oh, it's
as
coming.
the year ends. Yeah, it's coming. Totally. Yeah.
So part B is set in stone. You heard it. She said it twice. So part B with Kimberly is coming. We'll figure it out when that is, and then we'll talk about a little bit more about manifestation and just being tuned in with like your spiritual side and more about energy. I think that's be a good conversation if you're up for it. I think I'll be really loving
Oh
that.
yeah. Oh yeah, me too. I love talking about the unseen world and yeah, anything quantum.
Totally. Yeah. Well, podcast lovers, another great one. If you like always, if you have something to share, if there's anything on your heart, if you want to be part of R&R Resilience and Rebirth and come and join me, share. My mic is always open for you. But until then, stay rooted, stay blessed, and always stay connected to love, the strongest force in the universe.